Hello, brothers and sisters. The title of the message today is Sufficiency Under God's Grace. Number 6, God gave us the new seed. Number 1, Genesis chapter 2, verse 17. Genesis chapter 1 tells us that the whole universe was filled with darkness, the chaos and emptiness, that people could not dwell there because it was too dark. Thus, God gave the light to the world and created people. This can be called as the first revelation of God. All the world, all the words in the Bible are the expansion and development of this very revelation. God gave the light to the darkness and created people in the light. God let people represent God and express God. This is the main core. This is the primitive and original revelation. All the revelations in the Bible are the development of this very revelation, the first revelation. In the second chapter of Genesis, God picked up the useless soil, breathed the breath of life, and put them in the garden, where there is the fruit of life, and gave eternal spouse, and revealed the world where there is the fulfillment of the perfect union. This is the second revelation. In the first chapter of book of Genesis, God created man as a man and woman. And in the second chapter, it said they were naked, but they were not ashamed. Two people became united together, and God's plan became perfectly fulfilled. The people grew up as man and woman, and as they got married, they become fulfilled. Not just a man and not just a woman, two people must be united together. Just one of them cannot be fulfilled alone. In the third chapter of the book of Genesis, Adam took the fruit of good and evil, and after that, they became corrupted. The God gave a new seed. As the seed grew up, bare fruit, the kingdom of Israel was constructed. God giving them a new seed is the third revelation. Up to Genesis chapter 2, it is the perfect revelation of God. But then in the third chapter, the book of Genesis, Satan gave the fruit of good and evil and let them eat it. Thus an entirely different reality was started. Darkness was started. People who lived in the garden were chased out of the garden. The life outside of the garden and the life inside of the garden were entirely different. The life in the garden, all they had to do was just play, eat, and sleep. But the life outside of the garden, they had to work hard all through their life. They had to sweat on their forehead. The land produced thorns and thistles. Why such kind of thing happened? It was because Adam took the forbidden fruit, the fruit of good and evil. The Christian people call it as the original sin. But God said, do not eat the fruit of good and evil. If you eat of it, you will surely die. The moment when Adam took the fruit, he was cast out of the garden. Why did God do that? Even though it may not be a big problem in the world, but in the church, it becomes a terribly big problem. The church is a place where we all should be united together and become one body. Thus, the fruit of good and evil becomes a serious problem. It'll be soon revealed. In order to construct a church, this issue should be gotten rid of first of all. There are so many churches in the world, they seem to be so much developed, but actually nothing has changed a bit. It is because the church was built with the same principle that the world was organized. The world and the church both were organized with the knowledge of good and evil. There is no big difference between church and the world. The world is seeking for the power and honor, and the church is seeking for the eternal life and call God's name. But actually, they're seeking the same thing inwardly. Our early days seem to be so different, but the content are the same. Outward appearance may be different, but the principle is the same. The content is the same because the principle with which they organize their society and the main ingredients of their society are the same. There are various kinds of automobiles. There are buses, sedans, freight trucks. Their outward appearance may be different, but principle is the same. We can call all of them as cars. When there is an accident, they become broken with the same principle, smashed with the same principle. There are various kinds of airplanes, but there is an accident, they crash with the same principle. The world and the church are the same. Mercedes, Benz, and Volvo look so different, but the principle are the same. With the knowledge of good and evil, they organize, operate, and cherish the development of the church. There's no difference at all. If we compare church and the world, but if you want to become spouse of Christ with knowledge, it's impossible. In the true church, the fruit of good and evil become the greatest obstacle. Therefore, in order to destroy the church, Satan made Adam eat the fruit of good and evil. The Garden of Eden was symbol of the church today. Most of the people think Satan gave Adam the evil mind, and that is the original sin. But it is just the tip of the iceberg. Fundamental problem is interrupting the church with the fruit of good and evil. After Adam took the fruit of good and evil, Adam could not dwell together with God in the Garden of Eden. It is so difficult for Adam to walk together with God outside of the garden, no matter how hard Adam may try. Through religious effort, people try so hard to walk together with God, but it's almost impossible. People may be successful by chance, but it is just temporary thing. Those people in Adam cannot walk together with God. If people leave the garden, they cannot walk together with God. Inside of the garden, all you have to do is just eat, play, and sleep. We can dwell together with God. If we leave the garden through laws to reach God's requirement, is so difficult. And we cannot walk together with God. And we cannot dwell together with God. And there is no choice but for God to dwell in the heaven and people dwell on the earth separately. In order to solve this problem, God dwelt in the tabernacle and people dwell outside of tabernacle, no matter how close the people of Israel want to be. But there was limitation. But in the garden, just eating, playing, and sleeping itself is dwelling together with God. You are bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. Means that you may be sleeping, but you're still in me. You're just walking on the land that you are in me. As we are bone of God's bones and flesh of God's flesh. You are still in me, whether you may eat, play, or sleep. You are still in me. You are my body, the flesh and bones. You don't need to get hold of me by praying. You don't need to try to walk together with me because you're still in me. But after eating the fruit of evil, good and evil, people barely get hold of God by praying. They became so much degraded. People fell into the degraded world where people use various kinds of methods to get hold of God. In the garden, people just eat, play, and rest, and then naturally stay together with God. But they fell down to the world where people always have a hard time trying to get hold of God, which is so difficult. This is the problem. If the root is still there, soon the sprout will come out and grow up huge. Those sins people talk about is just like the leaves of the tree. Even if you get rid of some leaves, the trees will not die. The problems are still there. They repeat the same old things over and over again. They commit a little different kind of sin and crimes. Instead of drinking and fighting, they may commit different types of sin and crimes. If you get rid of some leaves at the west side, leaves will come out from the east side. If you get rid of leaves from the east side, leaves will come out from the south. Even though we apply the weed killers every year, but weeds will never be disappeared. If you apply in the summertime, they come out winter season. And if you apply in the winter season, weeds will come out in the summertime. As there are seeds of the weeds remaining, they always come out. What kind of seed they are? They are seed of the fruit of good and evil. That's which is toughest. And if this fruit comes out in the church, the union between brothers and sisters are blocked. As the union is blocked, brothers cannot acknowledge other brothers, judge, criticize, and condemn each other. The blocking of the path of church, brothers and sisters must become one lump. But if knowledge comes in, the relationship becomes broken. That's all the churches who look up to heaven, wait for the solution, maybe have to die. They think. People who are included in God's purpose were created to lead the church life. Without the church life, our life is destruction. If you try to lead happy marriage life, it becomes a serious problem. If a husband and wife just want to maintain a distant relationship and don't think about it seriously, it doesn't matter. If both of them think just officially, and my life is my life, your life is your life, don't pay too much attention, it cannot be too serious. But if husband and wife want to lead a happy marriage life, to become one heart, one body, it becomes a serious problem. As the eyes of both people became bright enough and discriminate good and evil, it becomes a serious problem. Church life is the same. If you think about church life just superficially, it doesn't matter. But if you want to lead a serious church life, it becomes a problem, and as we enter deeper and deeper into the church, it becomes more and more serious. We have to pull out its roots. When you face certain problems in the church, we discover, it is the issue of the fruit of good and evil. Without the church life, we cannot find that problem out. Even though the history of Christianity became so long, but it was not discovered because there was no really true church. Church was just like the temple, where just people pray quietly. That problem cannot be discovered. In a company, people work together, and it's hard to avoid conflicts. But after they finish working, everything will be over. They just go home. But the church life is continued on. Thus, it's really serious. What is really serious for God, it really is a serious problem. Those issues that people think are serious are not really serious. People torture themselves with just petty things, as if they are important. But in God's viewpoint, they're nothing. Therefore, if He can own God's mind, human problems are all nothing. There's nothing difficult in the world. One of our church sisters came to me bringing a very difficult problem. But in my point of view, it was not that difficult. I thought it was so easy. That's why I explained it in a very easy manner. She said, "Pastor, why do you say in such an easy manner?" She said, "In my point of view, it's so difficult, so serious. But you say it so easy. I don't know what to do. I'm confused." She may think it is so difficult, but actually it's so easy. Those things that must be cleaned up, those she can clean up. And they must be thrown away, she can throw them away. In God's viewpoint, they're nothing. But people think they are so difficult, so serious. When God says they're difficult, they're really serious. They're really difficult and serious. They're eternally serious. In the past, we really have not thought about the fruit of good and evil so much. But as we enter deeper and deeper in the church life, it gets more and more serious. Those problems that people think they're serious, as we enter into the eternal world, they disappear. We don't know when they disappear. We don't know the reason why. We took them so seriously in the past. When the world is quiet, life is not bad. But if the high tide hit us, we think we'll die. If you solve the problem, then another problem hit us. Even 80 years have flown like a river. If our life is easy, time will flow slowly and we'll become bored of life. But because of ups and downs, time flies like an arrow unconsciously into the truthful life, into the eternal life. If we want to enter into that life, first of all, we must get rid of that fruit. In order to get rid of weeds, every time we see weeds, we must pull them out. Mugwort that keep on growing even though we try to pull them out. In early spring, when the new buds come out, we must pull them out with nothing left behind. Even the thin roots, we must root out completely and perfectly. It is true with the fruit of good and evil. If we keep on pulling them out in the church life, we'll be able to root out completely. Don't you think we should lead our life happily? We must lead our life happily. Let's change our life from the past into the present time. We lead our life so difficult and terrible because of the fruit of good and evil in the past. Now, let's change it into happy life. Let's change it into the fruit of life. Crucify Christ. If we pull them out at home, marriage life will become happy. Marriage life will become so mature and become so happy as time goes by. But if we lead our marriage life in the fruit of good and evil, so many problems will be entangled. The longer time we live together, the life will get worse and grind our teeth. If the fruit of good and evil is gotten rid of, the church life will become better and better as time goes by. We have to live together since 1976. At that time, most of our church members were just students, high school students and college students. As time went by, our relations became better and better, deeper and deeper. If time flows some more, our church will become New Jerusalem life, surely and definitely. I'm so sure. In the beginning, our church was so small, we didn't even have a signboard for 5 years. But people were keep coming, confessing, I want to spend my life with you. As time went by, everything is getting better. The relationship is getting deeper and deeper. As I spend time here, as our relationship is so wonderful, I want to enjoy the longevity. Wow. Suppose our life is troublesome, we would think, I want to die earlier and go to heaven as soon as possible. But our church life is so nice, we don't think that way. I think it is because we don't have the fruit of good and evil in our church life. When the knowledge of good and evil was revealed in the church, it took quite some time to clean it up. After we cleaned it up, our relationship became renewed daily, deeper and deeper, and better. When we tried to clean it up, it was so noisy at first. But once it's cleaned up, everything became so easy, so quiet. Even the small roots soon disappeared. As we tasted the happiness and peace, we cannot lose happiness and peace anymore because of that issue. Thus, we keep on pulling out small roots of good and evil until they last. people feel about our church is so comfortable here at the first sight. In our church, we don't have campaign, let's love our neighbors. The main phrase of this year is love among ourselves. We don't do such kind of thing. No campaign in our church. But people feel love in our church spontaneously. We don't open a party for the first comers, but they would say, it is as if we came back to our own hometown. We feel so comfortable. Why do they say that? It is our life and atmosphere flows so naturally, they can feel that. They don't feel repulsion. For Adam, who was cast out of the garden, he just experienced thorns and thistles. He had to be careful not to be pricked. But our church brothers don't need to be careful and pay attention too much, because there is no thorns and thistles in our church. No further good and evil. Anyone can feel at home, and we treat the first comers as a long-time friend. Nobody thinks they are first comers. Excuse me. Whoever that may be, people make mistakes. Excuse me. Whoever they make, people make mistakes. They also have some good points, but we push them aside. We can see something new. We used to look at people with the criteria of good and evil, but now, as if we find out chestnuts from thorns, we can see something new from people. We have discovered a treasure box which is hidden in the field. If the whole field is treasure, everyone will want to buy that field. But that field was so shabby outwardly. Nobody thought that field was so full of land. But the tenant farmer discovered a hidden treasure in the field. Maybe he wanted to buy just the treasure, so he sold all of his possession and bought the field as a whole. There were 100 tons of dirt and stones, but in order to buy the treasure, he had to buy the whole field. In order to purchase people's mind, we have to purchase his weak points also. Nobody will sell just good points only. In the past, I tried to purchase just good things from people, but nobody approached to me. I wished that kind of person would come to our church. I wished. And I tried so hard to share the gospel with them, but they didn't come to church. I studied Bible with one of the students at the Gyeongbok National University campus during the lunch hour, but he went away. I wished he would come to our church. I studied Bible with him for 6 months continually, but he went away. I just wanted to purchase treasure. From that time on, I didn't just try to purchase just treasure. In order to purchase treasure, I have to buy the whole field. If you don't own the knowledge of good and evil, we can find out the garden very easy. If you don't have it, garden life is possible. Church life and family life becomes happy. In the first part of marriage life, I thought, what does she do like that? There is a better way. So I suggest my wife, let's do that this way. But my wife said no, without explaining reasons. My wife never explains the reason why I would suggest let's do that in such a way. But she doesn't explain. We have to do that because of such and such reason. She just said yes or no. Just simple answer. That's all. At first I felt bad. Why does she despise me? And because of that reason, we argued much. But as I thought about that later, well, do this or do that doesn't really matter. Well, she can cook rice putting more rice or less water. Cook rice putting more water or less water. I prefer rice with less water. But if we have family squabbles because of that reason, if she becomes really mad, she'll not cook at all, and I have to become hungry. My conclusion, to eat the watery rice or keep the peace, or much better to eat the dry rice and keep on arguing. Such kind of arguing doesn't lead us to any place. If things go right, it may good, but if not, it's still okay. I'm interested in taking care of work right way, but my wife said, "You are saying that because you hate me." As I thought about it, she was right. If I think about work too much, if the family relationship is broken, what good is there? Family is for the love and peace. And if the relationship is broken, what good is there? That was my conclusion. Thank you. Hallelujah. May God bless every one of you. Thank you again. Thank you.